What if the perfect society was ruled by philosophers instead of politicians? This provocative question serves as the foundation for Plato's Republic, an ambitious dialogue that seeks to define the nature of justice and the architecture of a flawless civilization. Standing amidst the marble columns of ancient Athens, we begin our exploration of the Kallipolis, or the beautiful city. Plato does not merely suggest minor reforms, he proposes a radical restructuring of human existence, moving away from the chaotic impulses of the crowd toward a state governed by the immutable laws of reason and virtue. At the heart of his vision is the belief that a city is the individual soul writ large, a macrocosm of our internal landscape. To fix society, he argues, we must first understand the harmony of the human psyche. This journey into the ideal state is not just a political exercise, but a psychological one, aiming to align the soul of the individual with the structure of the community. We will explore how Plato categorizes citizens and why he believes the state depends on a ruler who loves truth more than power.
To truly grasp Plato's vision, we must first examine why he believed most societies were fundamentally broken. Writing in the shadow of the Peloponnesian War and the tragic execution of his mentor Socrates, Plato didn't just see political disagreement, he saw a terminal illness. He famously characterized contemporary states as fevered, bloated by luxury, and driven by irrational desires rather than necessity. In these fevered cities, leadership becomes a prize for the ambitious, not a duty for the wise. When rulers pursue wealth, power, or personal honor instead of objective truth, the state loses its moral compass. Plato argued that this misalignment of priorities creates a stasis or internal factionalism, a civil war of the soul that acts as the ultimate disease of the body politic. He believed that any society prioritizing self-interest over the form of the good is fundamentally doomed to decay. Without a foundation in absolute truth, the city inevitably descends into a spiral of corruption, eventually collapsing into the darkest form of government, tyranny. For Plato, the survival of civilization required a total reimagining of what it means to lead.
At the heart of the Kallipolis is what Plato calls the noble lie, or the myth of the metals. This isn't a lie intended for malice, but a foundational myth designed to ensure social harmony. Plato envisioned a society where every citizen is told they were born from the earth, but with a specific metal in their soul: gold, silver, or bronze and iron. The golden souls are the guardians, possessed of the highest intellect and destined to rule. The silver souls are the auxiliaries, the courageous warriors responsible for the city's defense and enforcing the laws. Finally, the bronze and iron souls are the producers, the farmers, artisans, and merchants who sustain the city's material needs. For Plato, social stability depends entirely on everyone performing the specific function for which they are naturally suited. He viewed meddling between these classes as the ultimate recipe for societal decay. By ensuring the philosopher rules, the soldier fights, and the worker produces, the city mirrors the order of a healthy soul. This specialization is the very definition of justice in the state, everyone doing their own work and not interfering with others. At the very summit of this social hierarchy sits the Philosopher King, the ultimate synthesis of political power and profound metaphysical wisdom. Plato famously declared that the troubles of mankind would never end until either philosophers become kings or those who are currently kings become genuine philosophers. This isn't a call for academic elites to take over, but for leaders whose authority is rooted in an objective understanding of reality. The Philosopher King is not a career politician seeking status. Instead, they are individuals who have emerged from the metaphorical cave of shadows to gaze upon the sun, the form of the good. Having witnessed the ultimate truth, they are often reluctant to return to the murky world of politics. Yet this very reluctance is what makes them uniquely qualified. Because they value truth and the cultivation of the soul above all else, they have no desire for the material trappings or corrupting influence of power. They govern as a matter of necessity and duty, ensuring the state is directed toward the well-being of the whole rather than the enrichment of the few. For Plato,
Only those who do not want power can be fully trusted to wield it.
To produce leaders capable of such responsibility, the ideal state requires an unprecedented lifelong education system. This isn't merely academic training, it is the comprehensive molding of the soul. It begins in childhood with a strict balance of gymnastics for the body and music for the spirit. However, this includes strict censorship. Plato argued that stories portraying the gods as immoral or weak must be purged to ensure the youth develop a perfect moral compass. As students mature, they spend years mastering mathematics, geometry, and harmonics, not for commerce, but to turn the mind's eye toward the eternal realm of truth. Only the most resilient move on to dialectics, the peak of philosophical inquiry. This system acts as a filter to identify those with golden souls, refining their characters until they are immune to corruption. It is only after reaching the age of 50, having balanced abstract study with decades of practical administrative service, that these elite guardians are permitted to take the helm. They rule not out of ambition, but because their education has finally prepared them to see the world as it truly is. Integral to the rigorous education of the guardians is a policy that often strikes modern ears as jarring: state-mandated censorship. Plato argued that the human soul is like soft wax. It takes the shape of whatever is pressed against it during its formative years. Therefore, the stories, music, and art a citizen consumes are never merely entertainment. They are the psychological blueprints of their moral fiber. In the Republic, Plato proposes a radical purging of traditional Greek literature. He argued for the banning of any myths or poetry that depicted the gods as immoral, fearful, or dishonest. His logic was uncompromising. If the youth are exposed to tales of divine pettiness or heroes weeping in despair, they will grow up to be weak and undisciplined. You cannot expect a guardian to face death with courage if he has been taught from infancy that the afterlife is a place of misery or that the gods are capricious. By strictly controlling the city's cultural output, the state ensures that only images of courage, temperance, and piety influence the citizens. This fosters a unified and virtuous social identity from the ground up, molding the character of the individual to reflect the stability and harmony of the ideal state. This brings us to the ultimate goal of the Republic, the definition of justice. For Plato, justice isn't merely a legal contract or a set of rules. It is a state of internal harmony. In the city, justice is achieved when every class, the gold, silver, and bronze, performs its unique function without interfering with the roles of others. When the guardians lead with wisdom, the auxiliaries protect with courage, and the producers sustain with temperate labor, the city is just. But Plato goes deeper, suggesting that the city is actually a macrocosm of the individual. He argues that the human soul mirrors this tripartite structure, composed of reason, spirit, and appetite. Reason is our capacity for logic, spirit is our drive for honor and indignation, and appetite is our collection of base physical desires. A just person is one whose reason sits on the throne, ruling over their spirit and keeping their appetites in check. Just as a city collapses when the producer seize power, an individual becomes unstable when their desires override their logic. The ideal state, then, is the perfect reflection of a healthy, balanced human soul. Finally, we must confront Plato's deep-seated skepticism of democracy, a system he viewed as dangerous and inherently unstable. He compared a democratic population to a great beast that is driven by emotion and appetite rather than reason or wisdom. To illustrate this, he gives us the famous ship of state analogy. He likens democratic leaders to brawling sailors who fight over the helm of a ship without any actual knowledge of navigation. They ignore the true navigator, the philosopher, simply because he doesn't join their petty squabbles. To Plato, democracy's obsession with absolute freedom eventually erodes discipline, creating a power vacuum for the rise of a demagogue. This charismatic leader exploits the people's impulsive desires, eventually transforming from a protector into a tyrant. In concluding his vision of the Republic, Plato offers us a city in speech, a theoretical blueprint that prioritizes the excellence of the individual soul over the volatile whims of the many. He leaves us with a haunting question. Can true justice ever be achieved through the ballot box, or does it require the rare, disciplined guidance of those who truly see the light of truth?